Welcome back to part 2 of our conversation with Patrick Ruff. In this episode, Patrick shines the spotlight on the power of sport in high school students as he shines the spotlight on sport as curricular, co-curricular, or extracurricular.
Then at the school setting, you contrasted it with teachers. How are you assessing if you're getting the job done, right? Because you talk about the difficulty of assessment or authentic assessment. How do you know if you're building character, values, work ethic, team building, and other skill development to sport and resiliency or, physical development? It's a really challenging thing, especially in sports.
I think a couple ways you can really start to get at that. And I think that there needs to be a lot of work in this. I think, obviously, we're going to measure what's of value, right? So if we name, teamwork as a value, then we need to design the measurements to kind of get at that. So I think for us, it's about, naming what our values are. And I think at Priory, those are clear. I mean, certainly winning is part of that, but that's certainly not the only, barometer that we use. So I think it's really kind of first naming those values and then working, as you said, to kind of find the ways to measure them. I think, the two best ways are really being present and around and understanding, right? And I think, one of the ways is certainly a perspective of the student, the athlete who's there. I think that's a really critical voice that needs to be taken into consideration. But I also think it's being around the team when they're practicing and when they're playing, either before a game or after a game, and really observing, what the coach is doing and saying. And that takes time. Those games are at night, but it's critical. I mean, we observe our teachers continually, and I don't think we do a great job necessarily of putting, that same effort into observing our coaches. I know that was an important thing for us up in San Francisco at St. Ignatius, and I'm sure Mark is doing it down here at Woodside Priory, but really being present and understanding what a coach is trying to do, and then being willing to offer them feedback and to engage in a dialogue about what they are doing. I think coaches, they're hungry for feedback, and it's not necessarily feedback about, hey, listen, you should have gone zone here, or the press really should have pulled back the press or whatever. That trap didn't work, but more of, okay, what were you trying to say? Like when Susie, was in, the game, what'd you tell her, like right before she got in there, and what happened, or what would you have said differently? I think it's given coaches that opportunity to talk about, those moments, because that's how we're going to grow. And then I think that the third way is really trying to stay in touch with the athletes, after they finish the program, and then to see what they do. And I know that's really hard, but really to kind of understand, okay, what you did, you were a 4-year member of our football team. So, and I'm not concerned that they're playing football now, but okay, so, and if we know the values that we wanted from our football team, can we see those values in that person's life, with whatever they're doing? So I think it's really working to keep those relationships or find ways, to kind of engage the alums from those programs. And there's great ways to do that. You can have them back, at different times during the year for an alumni game. And people generally come back, to their reunions and they talk about the thing that they did. And oftentimes it's sports. So it's kind of an easy one. But I think it is kind of staying in touch with them so you can see those values and how they're playing out in their life. So few are going to go on to do whatever sport they're doing in high school professionally. But every one of them will go on to do something in, a work situation that probably will be trying to live out the values that they learned, during that sport, whatever it is.
I gotta ask that. We often like to do this, right, in sports, is attribute your sport experience, especially in K-12 or high school, and how it sets you up for success later in life. But do you ever go back then and do you ever find the opposite cases, the rival hypothesis in a way, like, right, the athlete that ends up in jail or not getting the job or not getting to college and go, maybe they spent too much time in sport, or they had a bad experience. Like, do you ever find the opposite kind of evidence too and make the same conclusion?
Yeah, I don't know, I haven't thought about it like that. Gee, really, I think more that's, that might be a function of, usually it's never one thing, right? Why someone's not successful or in a situation that they are in. But I guess I kind of believe in that power of that individual that's around them. And I do believe, and I guess it's the hope, right? It's the optimism, that I think I try to operate with every day, that they're going to be better, because of a coach. Now, perhaps the coach they had different goals, or, kind of to what Meg, you were talking about, like weren't maybe assessed well in terms of them teaching the values that we want. And that, there might've been a bad match there. Like this coach was just using, these players, for their own, good or growth. And I think that can be really detrimental, obviously. But boy, I guess just in the deepest part of my heart, I just believe that coach, just has such a privileged spot in a person's life, and just such a great responsibility that they can literally change the trajectory of that person. And I generally think in a good way. And I think maybe it's when it's not in a good way, maybe it's because that coach, wasn't as attentive to, the person's needs, or, was focused in on different, aspects. But yeah, I could see it. And we know so many examples, right, where athletes have made just, decisions that have been very detrimental to their lives, and has really impacted a lot of people. But boy, I just still think that the coach has such just a privileged spot, and such a wonderful opportunity to just really transform. And I think they do. I think so many coaches do, that every day in transform, our students. And I guess just kind of putting a bow on that, I do think, there are some people, and I think this is probably where our coaches need to continue to grow, but there are some students that come away from an experience with a coach, that isn't positive, and they do struggle. And I think that's where it's incumbent upon, people like me who are leaders in our school, to be willing to have that conversation with the coach, and to not be afraid to have that courageous, moment where we need to help them understand the impact of what they're doing. And again, I think sometimes, we like to be nice, to people, as opposed to, really have that, that harder conversation. But I think it's critical to who we want to be, and when we don't do it, and I think in general, people want to be good. No one wants to be not good. So I think, if we can couch it and phrase it and always come from that mindset of wanting to be better, I think we have to give that feedback to our coaches, just like we do to our teachers too.
Hey, can you think about one of those conversations? It sounds like you're referring to, like, I can sense the educational literature you're pulling from. And I'm wondering if you can think of an example where you had that tough conversation with the coach or AD or somebody and saw them take form.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I mean, I think we were blessed to see some great growth in some coaches. Certainly one of my jobs back in Boston was, I was the assistant principal, and my role was everything non-academic. And coming from an academic, side, like that was overwhelming to me. Like but they needed a person to fit into it. And I just worked at it and just figured it out. So, I always loved those things, but I didn't know anything about a yearbook, like how to be how to do the production of the yearbook, or how to throw a dance, or what you need to do for that. But I did get to work, obviously with athletics, and there was a soccer coach, who really, he struggled in the sense that he was a great coach, but boy, he really, he struggled connecting with, the players. And I'll never forget, I was in this conversation with the athletic director and him, and the athletic director knew him very well. I'd hired him, and I was this new guy who, I'm not from Boston, and, Boston's if you take some time to kind of get in. So they're looking at this guy's looking at me, and he's like, wow, what value of you do you have in this conversation? And so I just said, Coach, listen, what you do on the field is incredible, but then how you work with our players, it just tears them up. They're afraid, and there's just a lot of fear. So, I mean, they're good, but they're just so afraid that sometimes the good doesn't shine through. And it was tricky. It wasn't super fun, but we talked for about an hour, and I had some really concrete examples, and stuff that I had seen too, right? I think, the legitimacy came from, well, listen, like I watched this and we had this experience. So it was not just, hey, you're hearing something and you didn't see it. Like I had done the work, to make sure that I could, specifically cite examples. And it was great. That next season, that team, great team, totally overachieved, ended up winning a state title. And it was this, just great experience. And they got on a great run and just kind of came together. And it was just beautiful to see this coach. And not that, he still had his moments, right? It wasn't like it was this, total conversion of the heart. But I think he understood kind of maybe how he had to kind of work with some of the players in a different kind of way and kind of communicate with them in a different kind of way. And I think it worked well. And I think, and it showed in the way the team performed. But I think that conversation was easier because I had done my homework. It wasn't easier, saying it. And then, we've done a few of them since then, so they become easier. But boy, I remember my mouth was dry. Like I was just, I was just nervous. So, but again, I did my homework. So it was, and I was prepared. And like anything, teaching or coaching, when you do your scouting, and you have a good plan, usually, things work out okay. So but yeah, I think those conversations, you have to have them. You have to take the time to be ready for them, because again, the impact that these coaches have on these students is just critical.
You have such a great hands-on approach. Is there what can administration do to help support the whole athletic department, ADs, and coaches further their development? I mean, it sounds like a lot of self-reflection and reflection in general is always a benefit. Is there a system that you kind of have felt comfortable with to help promote development in the athletic department?
I think we have to look at the athletics not as separate from, like, we can't look at it as something that we do at the end of the day. We have to look at it as something that's part of the day. I feel sometimes we segregate what happens in athletics, and it's almost becomes like an add-on thing. But it really has to be seen, as integral, right? Like not everyone takes physics, right? But we still look at physics as really important as what we do, right? So, not everyone takes 4 years of a language, but language is still really an important, part of what we do. And not everyone's going to participate in a sport or play 4 years of a sport, but we still have to look at sports as, just as important as the language department or the science department or the math department. And I think sometimes, we don't. So I think that's got to be a mindset or a culture that needs to be, cultivated. And I'm getting to know it here, right, at Priory. And again, it's tricky because, we're all distant right now. We have kids on campus for different things, but I haven't been able to see it in action. So I think first we have to really make sure that they feel part of the community and that the community sees that as an integral part of who we are. And it's not about winning games. It's about the expression of our values and letting those come out. So that's a big one. And then I do think the budget has to match, right? We do have to put, our resources in the things that matter most. And of course, I think initially of a gym, like a nice gym or having good uniforms, and those are important too. But I do think stipends and what we pay our coaches, that budget, it's woefully under-resourced. There's no reason why a coach shouldn't make, comparable to what an English teacher makes in terms of a section. I'm not saying, we should pay the football coach, $75,000 because that's what a teacher makes. But I do think, I think the traditional model has been to pay a coach, maybe $5,000 or $7,500. And I think that model works when so many of our teachers just did this as something that they did after school, for a couple hours, for 12 weeks. But now the model has changed, and the expertise that we require, not only for a teacher, right, but also for a coach, is different. And we need to honor that and respect that. So I do think, putting our resources, to find a coach, so that they can, have some sort of a balanced life, so that they don't have to do 7 other odd jobs, just to try and make ends meet, so that they can do this thing that they love and that they're really good at, and that students are transformed by, to try and kind of make it all happen. So I think those two things are pretty critical, for us to look at. And I know there's some people that are doing some really creative things, in those areas. But I think that's, if we're going to continue to make, if we continue to harness the real power of sport, like we want to harness the power of a retreat experience, or a service experience, or an experience in history class, like we do need to, put our resources there too.
Yeah, so your kind of educational or sport philosophy is really seeing sport as co-curricular, not extra.
100%. And I would even say it's curricular, right? I would almost try and get rid of the curricular, right? It's curricular. It has to be part of the experience that we offer. So, I mean, yeah, perfect world, it's curricular.
So what do you say, right? I'll do the opposite voice. I'm the English teacher or the physics teacher, or, a parent. And I say, wow, that sounds really nice. And I hear what you're saying, but you're also, you're nuts. Like, I don't care about, Billy or Susie, on the court. I want them, learning, reading, writing, arithmetic. Sports are nice and all that, but it's not that serious. And, we got bigger things we got to do, so don't be spending all types of crazy money. Like, the colleges and the pro teams do that stuff, and we see all the problems. What changed my mind.
Right. So I would say, yes, the, reading and writing are critical, and we want to teach those things. And then I would argue, just as critical are communication and collaboration and problem solving, and being able to, look someone in the eye and advocate for yourself. And I think, those are the values that you really want, your daughter or son to have. Like, those are the things that you want them to be able to do in their life, in addition to being able to, read and write. So those things are the things that we teach, when we have football or basketball or soccer or swimming or tennis. Like, we teach students, the importance of, being able to collaborate and work together to recognize someone's gifts, and how your gifts can support another person's gifts, or when you have kind of a moment when you're not as good, and leaning on someone else who is really good. Discipline and hard work, and seeing that pay off, right? We know in life, when you're 25 or 30 and you're working for, a startup company, discipline and hard work are going to be critical. And you're going to learn those things, in our tennis program. You're going to learn those things in our volleyball program. So, and I think we just continue to keep pointing to the values as the end game, as opposed to bump, set, and spike. So, I think, yeah, and we want to use the things that your child is interested in, to really teach those values. Not every student, wants to read a book, right? That's not necessarily their go-to. But boy, they really want to go out and take some swings in the batting cage. That is really their go-to. And so we want to find the person, that can kind of meet them where they are, and then give them those values that are so critical. And there are kids that love reading, and we have great teachers for that too. And there's people that are both. They love the batting cage and they love reading. But I think, we want to focus in on the values and the sport, something that they choose, not something that they have to go to, something that they choose, is the place where they're going to learn those critical skills, or those values that are going to really set them up, so they can be their best self, way beyond, high school or college. So yeah, I think, we all agree that those things are important. And so we want to take care of the people that are giving us, those values. So I'm not sure if that would convince you, but I mean, I think, that's to me, that's the way to go.
What is it that I've heard before, that athletics is kind of the gateway to the rest of the school when, trying to get people to come to the school, but also to raise money and that sort of thing. Is that kind of how you see it as well?
I'm not sure. I think, Friday nights or Saturday mornings or Sunday mornings, right? People check the scores of, what happened, at the basketball court or the field, that night, right? They don't really follow our SAT scores as closely, right? So, we do like to be on, the right side or have a little, bigger headline so people would take notice of, Woodside Priory or St. Ignatius for that matter. So I think it's a way. I think it's something that people pay attention to, particularly if you can develop some good rivalries or good competitions with some great schools, and then kind of use that to kind of leverage some good things. Some of the rivalries. I was at St. Ignatius, and Sacred Heart Cathedral is a great rival, and there's some really fun games. But there were some really nice ways that we could come together, whether it was service or prayer, before those games, the weeks leading up to them, so that we could unite about a common cause. We did a great volleyball game, in October 2 years ago, for kind of as a breast cancer awareness experience, and everyone wore pink, and both schools really promoted it, and so we really came together to kind of raise awareness, about this really important issue in our world. And I think that's the power of sport, in the sense that it does bring people together in a very unique way. I think sport is a great gateway to a school, but then it can't end there, right? It's got to be integrated fully into what we're trying to do, and it's got to be the result of really good values in place. So. But hey, it's always great when we can have a game and pack the gym and let some fourth grader or third grader experience a team and say, I want to wear that jersey one day, or I want to be a part of this school one day. And I do think sometimes that is the attraction. And then when they get to a place like Woodside Priory or St. Ignatius, for that matter, you see so much more than just the team. You get exposed to this incredible educational experience, that really does impact and change a life.
As we wrap up another Sport Report special guest Saturday, we thank you for tuning in and hope you'll join us again next week on Sport Report to explore how we can redefine success and calm down obsessed parents. See you next time on Sport Report.